let me check and make sure and see if the camera's working yet. Yeah, sure, there it is. All right. So we are good to go. Let's talk about Vigilante. So this is probably going to be the last DC figure that I do for a while because we've got less than a month until the Masters of the Universe movie comes out. And I know I got a lot of He-Man stuff to open up. So we're probably going to be concentrating on that for most of the near future. So I would say it's probably going to be a while before I can open those up. And since Bobby Wald specifically had asked about them, the Order of the Crimson Moon figures, I'm probably going to speak of the devil, probably going to delay those just a little bit. Bobby Wald says you should probably pick up the Dark Knight Returns Force to make into silver for the Lone Ranger. Well, I'm already way ahead of you because you might recall a while back when Mcfarlane did the Jonah Hex figure. You know, the standard version of General was brown, but remember they did the Platinum Edition version of General, and that was already a white horse. So I got that version of General a while back, and you can see the video. It's up on YouTube where I opened it up, and it's a great figure. But I mainly bought it because I wanted to use it for my NECA Phantom figure for Hero, his horse. But I thought to myself at the time, hey, if I get a Lone Ranger in this scale, he could totally be silver too. So that would be cool. But yeah, I've actually got a white Mcfarlane horse already. Oh, and since we're talking about Vigilante specifically, yeah, he was a cowboy, but he was like a contemporary, modern day cowboy. He was one who existed in the World War II era rather than the Old West. He's still a cowboy, but just a little more modern. And he rode a different kind of steed. So yeah, I went and grabbed. This is from the Batman movie. It's the Drifter motorcycle, which I thought Vig would look really cool if we put him on this. So I went ahead and grabbed that out of my storage. I had one that was unopened, and I went ahead and opened it up. And I thought that I'd already opened this one on the channel, but when I was opening it, I couldn't remember a lot of the things about it when I was opening it up that should have stood out. Like it came with an alternate head that was like a motorcycle helmet. And that so I don't think I actually unboxed this on the channel, but we can talk a little bit about it while I'm getting this Vigilante figure unboxed. And of course, we're gonna put Vig on the motorcycle, so it's gonna be cool. So Vigilante has a fairly long and storied history at DC Comics, and this is the original Vigilante. This was the first character to bear that name, and there have been a few other characters that have been called Vigilante. If you saw the Peacemaker show on HBO Max, that one's got kind of a bastardization of the Adrian Chase version of Vigilante from the 80s, which was the first version that I was familiar with. And they turned that character into a complete joke. But the costume looked cool. I'll say this for that's probably one of the better costumes that I've seen in the James Gunn DC stuff, which damning with faint praise. But they did a good job with the costume on him and the costume on Vigilante. I will give credit while credit is due. We got a lovely piece of artwork on the back by Gray Morrow, who is just a fantastic, unfortunately passed away a few years back. Fantastic comic book artist. And I think that his style was perfect for Vigilante because, as you can see, he has a very realistic, very naturalistic looking style. And for the most part, as great of an artist as he was, I don't think his style worked that well with superheroes because his stuff was so realistic that his superheroes wound up mainly looking like guys in Halloween costumes. But since Vigilante was, not wearing a standard superhero costume, but wearing this cowboy attire, like it fit with his style perfectly. As much as I love Gray Morrow, and I'm not trying to disrespect the guy. I kind of feel like his art style works best with either more realistic characters like Vigilante or sci-fi, fantasy, horror, that kind of stuff in the standard superhero genre. So let's go ahead and open them up. And I will point out that since he does come with guns, he has the little disclaimer at the bottom: collector's age 17, 17 plus. This is an R-rated action figure. It's restricted to 17 and older. So, yeah. Vigilante appeared on the Justice League Unlimited cartoon series, where he was voiced by Nathan Fillion. And I really enjoyed his appearances on that. He had a couple of standout appearances on that show. Kyrus is here, and he says hi. So, hi, Kyrus. Hope you're doing well. But one of my favorite episodes was the episode that was an homage to the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which was the Golden Age superhero team that Vigilante was actually a member of. I should point out that the box here actually says All-Star Squadron on here, and I do believe he did appear in the All-Star Squadron, but that's not what I'm most associated with. I'm more associated with the Seven Soldiers of Victory, since that was the team he was actually in back in the 1940s, with Green Arrow and Speedy and the Crimson Avenger, and so there's a Vigilante, Crimson Avenger, Green Arrow, Speedy, Stripesy, and the Star Spangled Kid. And who am I missing? Who am I missing? Not Wing. Wing was kind of he was a member, but he wasn't like an official member. He was like the 8th soldier. They should have just called it the 8 Soldiers of Victory and let Wing be one of them. Who am I forgetting? Oh, Shining Knight. Yeah, Shining Knight. Speaking of guys on white horses, Shining Knight. And Shining Knight was really cool in that. There's a really neat scene in that episode where Vigilante and Shining Knight are discussing Clint Eastwood, and Shining Knight did not approve of the moral ambiguity of Clint Eastwood's character. I could see why they called the Violet dirty. And Vigilante says, if you want to watch movies on my big screen TV, you best not talk bad about Clint Eastwood. Kyra says he likes the Kiss t-shirt. Thank you. Yeah, it's got the Destroyer artwork on there, which is probably the definitive Kiss album. It says Destroyer down at the bottom, so it's pretty cool. And says, I was selling figures on eBay this week. Well, I hope you turned a tidy profit then. I hope your sell was successful. So yeah, he does come with guns, because how do you not have Vigilante with guns? So a lot of these are like, I think all of these accessories are reused from Jonah Hex. So we got the shotgun here, rifle, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna say it's a shotgun. I believe it's a shotgun. And then we got 2 6-shooters with ivory handles on these revolvers. They're very cool. And we got a big old Bowie knife. And this, again, came with Jonah Hex originally, but Jonah's had a brown handle. This one has a white handle. I believe Jonah Hex's irons had brown handles on them as well, but Vig gets the ivory handles. There we go. Kyra says, I like MC. Wear an MC jacket over the t-shirt. Should wear a members only jacket. We should bring those back. Those were cool jackets. And then I don't believe that I don't remember Jonah Hex coming with this, but he does have a lariat. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. And this is gonna be tricky because it's taped in, and this is actually like a soft goods lariat. This is actually a little piece of cord, and it's kind of a shiny tan cord. It's not quite gold. You couldn't quite use it with Wonder Woman, but it's just a piece of string coiled up and taped together. So I am not gonna untape this because I don't want like a bunch of like tangled string getting all over the place, and that's what would wind up happening with that eventually. I'd put it into storage, and it would just get all wadded up. And then he's got this little hatchet. And I don't remember Vigilante ever using a hatchet like this in the comics. He may have. I may have just missed it. But, of course, this was, again, a hatchet that came with Jonah Hex initially. And I guess they figured, while we're putting all these Jonah Hex accessories in here, we might as well put this hatchet. All right, so let's go ahead and get him out of the package. And he's got all these rubber tabs. And I still need to read that trading card. I haven't forgotten about that, but I did get kind of distracted. So we'll get him out of the package, and then we'll read the trading card right after that. But yeah, of all the characters that DC has had carry the name of Vigilante, I still feel like that Greg Saunders, which is his real name, is the best of them all. And it's funny because, like I said, I was talking about him being on Justice League Unlimited, and up to that point, he'd pretty much been treated as like a character that was like a golden age character. He was a guy who was around during World War II. And I guess what they realized when they were doing that show is there's no reason he couldn't be a contemporary character. I mean, even in the World War II stories, like he's a cowboy, so he's kind of a throwback already anyway. So why don't we just go ahead and use him in the modern day? I guess I was wrong. He did have a white handle on his knife. I was thinking it was a brown handle, but I guess I misremembered. It is different, though, because you can see that, like, Jonah Hex's has a little silver pommel at the top, and Vidge, it's just all white. But I was right about his 6 shooters. He's got a brown handle. And you might have already expected this. And if you're familiar with these figures, you might have already known, but they do reuse a lot of the same parts since, they are wearing similar outfits. It kind of makes sense. But the main difference I can think of offhand is the torso, because, of course, Jonah Hex has just kind of more of a plain shirt, and Vidge has the bibbed front to his shirt. What would have been another cool accessory to include with this, now that I think about it, is a guitar. Since he was the Prairie Troubadour, he's a singing cowboy. He's like Gene Autry, so it would have been cool to include, and it shows on the artwork on the back where he's playing his guitar. So, but I'm pretty sure I can 3D print one. It's not a big deal. I'm not complaining. Different hats, different heads, different torsos. Like I said, Vidge has the bibbed front on his cowboy shirt, just like the character traditionally has. And he actually does have a soft goods bandana, which I'm sure we can pull over his face to look like how he looks like in the comic. But sometimes he had his bandana down like from his face like that. So, and if they had had the bandana over his face in the comics, we wouldn't see this this great facial expression where he's just got this little bit of a smirk. He's a little cocky. But let's see. I'm gonna compare on these parts, and it looks like the arms are indeed the same, even though the torso itself is different, and I think that the spacers in there might be different, but it looks like the arms are the same. And you can see how like he's a bit more broad-shouldered than Jonah Hex. This Jonah Hex figure was supposed to be he's meant to be displayed wearing that duster, but I didn't really like the way they did the duster. I wasn't really happy with the execution of it, so I prefer to leave the duster off of mine. And you can see he's got the same belt, same gun belt, like pretty much like the pants are the same. It's the lower legs that are different, because Jonah Hex had those kind of buccaneer boots, like the Captain America boots going on, and I'm pretty sure that Vidge just has standard cowboy boots. But they did that weird Mcfarlane thing that they do where like they color the joint, like I feel like it should be the opposite color of what it is. That joint should be the same color as the boots, not the same color as the pants. TMNT says, am I late? Not real. It's been about 15 minutes. But I'm kind of just getting started talking about the figure, so you haven't really missed much. And then he's got the same hands as Jonah Hex. So different head, different torso, different lower legs, but everything else seems to be reused from the Jonah Hex figure. So let's go ahead and, before I actually do forget about it, let's talk about this trading card. So we got the same piece of artwork from the back of the package, and it's Gray Morrow, so it's good to see that artwork again. Here's what the back of the trading card looks like, and it reads, Vigilante, All-Star Squadron, data file, real name, Greg Sanders. They got that wrong. His name is Greg Saunders. I'm almost 100% sure of that. It's Saunders with a U. Yep, Greg Saunders. I had the Wikipedia page pulled up because that way I could check myself if I need any information that I might forget. But yeah, they spelled his name wrong on there. That's unfortunately. When Greg, I'm going to say it right though. When Greg Saunders' father was killed by bandits, he left a career as the Prairie Troubadour. Wish they'd explain a little bit more what that is. Like that's the nickname for what he is. But like he was a singing cowboy. He was a country and western singer. To become the crime fighter Vigilante. Moving to New York, he partnered with martial artist Stuff, the Chinatown Kid, and even teamed with Superman to track a werewolf. How about that? Speaking of the Lone Ranger that we were talking about earlier, I always thought that the coolest idea for a story would be to have the Lone Ranger fighting against werewolves because he already has silver bullets. Why has nobody done this? It seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Do a story with the Lone Ranger fighting werewolves. Would that not be cool? Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. He later formed a new Seven Soldiers of Victory team to fight the far future Sheeta, but they were massacred in battle. Oh, no. So was Vigilante in the comics in the 80s or 90s? Yes, he was. He did appear in several comics throughout the 80s and 90s, but this version of Vigilante was not the main version of Vigilante for a good period of that time, because you had the Adrian Chase version of Vigilante, and he was really popular in the late 80s. And in the 90s, like, they tried to do a few different Vigilante characters. Like there was a female Vigilante that was a supporting character in Deathstroke, the Deathstroke comic at the time. And there was, after 0 Hour, there was an attempt to make a new version of Vigilante, but I don't think that one really caught on. I think what happened with this version of the character is once they had him on Justice League Unlimited and people realized he was pretty cool, they started using him a bit more in the comics at the time. I think that's what happened. So Vigilante's got these holsters. They are working holsters. And he's got a loop in the back of his belt. This is the same, like I said, the same gun belt Jonah Hex had. And you can put one of these other accessories in here, like the hatchet, and it is kind of a tight fit. It does seem like this is not quite as pliable a plastic as what they had on Jonah Hex, but only slightly. So you could put the hatchet back there if you want to. Or, as I prefer, as you already saw with the Jonah Hex figure, and I'll do it with this one too, you can put the knife back there. And I figure if that axe was a tight fit, the knife's going to be an even tougher fit, but there we go. We got it in there anyway. And let's make sure that those 6 shooters will fit into the holsters just fine. And they do. They're nice and snug. They're not going to fall out or anything. And you can see, like, his is a much more lighter tan color than Jonah's gun belts, which are a little more of a reddish brown. So, and he's got this cowboy hat, which is kind of an off-white cowboy hat. In the comics, he had a white cowboy hat, as we saw in the image. And, blue shirt, red bandana, all that's pretty consistent. You see he's got gloves here. He does not have gloves on the actual figure, which is interesting. They could have just colored his hands brown. That would have been fine, but whatever. And then you see here he's got light blue pants. And the figure also has light blue pants, which has got like some kind of dry brushing on it to give it kind of a worn denim sort of look to it. Now, in the original Golden Age comics, I believe he had white pants, and he had white pants on the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Now, if you really want one with white pants, guess what? Good news. Mcfarlane did make a Platinum Edition figure that has colors that are in homage to his Justice League Unlimited appearance. So he's got like a slightly darker blue shirt and white pants, and that is available, but it's going to be a little more expensive. A little more expensive because it's a Platinum Edition. And like I said, I bought 2 of these. I wound up getting one of them from Entertainment Earth and the other one from Walmart.com. And both of them that they sent me were the standard edition figure. But that's fine because, like, I don't really have a preference as far as which one will be Vigilante in my collection. And like I said, the reason I got 2 of these is because I wanted to make a Lone Ranger figure. And, of course, the Lone Ranger should already have blue pants anyway, right? Kyra says, I would like a Lone Ranger figure. I had one when I was a kid. Yeah, like, I had the 3 3/4 inch Gabriel Lone Ranger figures based on the Legend of the Lone Ranger movie. And, you know, as much crap as that movie gets, those are some really cool action figures. I got to say, those were some of the best action figures that I ever had up to that point. So, and I had Lone Ranger and Tonto and Butch Cavendish, who they gave him a cowboy hat in the figure, even though I don't think he ever wore a cowboy hat in the movie. Didn't look that much like Christopher Lloyd, but still 3 3/4 inch figure in the early 80s. What do you expect? Kyra says, I just clicked on the Wrath of Khan movie on YouTube. Oh, that's a great movie. Yeah, and Silver. I had Silver. And then they had the Marks. Gabriel re-released those like around that time. I think they were like 10-inch. They weren't quite 12-inch figures. And that one was really cool. And I know a lot of people got some nostalgic affection for those, but I'm kind of frustrated. I was kind of frustrated by that figure because his mask just broke almost instantly. And then I've got a Lone Ranger with no mask. So that was kind of lame. But they were really nice figures, and they did a nice job on the costumes and everything. So as you can see in the illustration here, Vigilante usually wore his bandana over his face. And this is a soft goods bandana, but they had it down from his face. By the way, the original design of the Lone Ranger, as he was intended by the writer of the radio show, is he was originally supposed to just have kind of like a bandana mask that went over his face. But they later switched to the kind of more sort of like, you know, domino mask, which I feel like is a little more distinctive. But anyway, this is like a soft goods, and it's kind of sewn together in the back, so you don't have to worry about it coming untied or anything. But it's kind of a stretchy spandex fabric, so we can pull it up over his face, and then we have him with the mask, and he looks really cool. And we can pull it down a little bit under, and then he looks like the Shadow if we pull it down just under the nose. You know, sometimes even in the days like COVID's not really a thing anymore. I mean, I know it's still around, but it's kind of got weak and mutated, and most people have had it by now. But I'll still see people wearing masks out in public, and I'm not trying to judge. If you got to do that to feel comfortable, hey, go ahead and do that. I don't really care. I'm not trying to talk smack about that. But what I am talking smack about is when I see the people out in public and they're still wearing their COVID mask and they got it like under their nose, and I'm just like, dude, if in the year of our Lord 2026 you're still going to be wearing a mask for COVID, yeah, fair enough. Go, you do you, but at least wear it right. You know what I mean? But like I said, if you want to wear a mask, that's fine. I don't have a problem with people wearing a mask. I really don't. You know, that's if that makes you feel more comfortable, go ahead and do it. But at least wear it right. You know what I mean? Just my opinion, not trying to be controversial or anything. But yeah. So the soft goods bandana, that is a nice touch. They could have just sculpted this on here or something like that, but I kind of feel like that gives you more display options too. And like I said, I really like the there goes that. I really like his facial expression that he's got on there, and we would have lost that if they hadn't have gone ahead and given us this soft goods bandana. So that's a nice a nice little feature. I enjoy that aspect of the character. So let's go ahead and talk about his articulation some. So Vigilante can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. He's going to take that bandana with him, isn't he? And it's going to kind of fall down, and now it's hanging over the back of his shoulders like it's a Boy Scout neckerchief or something. So I'm going to kind of try to rotate that back around and get that back on his face. The Prairie Troubadour. There we go. I think I am going to 3D print him a guitar. Kyra says, I didn't like how they made the Lone Ranger a comedy in the Johnny Depp movie, but I still like the last 5 minutes of the movie with the Lone Ranger song. I agree with all of those points about that movie. The whole train chase sequence is awesome. And if I'm going to watch that movie, that's the main reason I'm going to watch it. I did not like that they made the Lone Ranger character into kind of a buffoon in that movie. And I kind of felt like he deserved to be treated with like a little more respect. I actually didn't mind how they did Tonto in that movie so much, even though he's just kind of like a palette swap, basically, of like, you know, like we'll just change Captain Jack Sparrow from a pirate to an Indian and call that a day. But like he is like even his origin was kind of similar in a way, you know, and the way that they kind of revealed the character's thought processes and why he was doing certain things that he was doing. He kind of followed that Jack Sparrow formula a lot. And but my main problems with that movie was they just kind of made the Lone Ranger himself kind of a buffoon. It also bothered me when he says "Hi-Yo Silver" away at the end, and Tonto's like, don't ever do that again, because like we just got to be embarrassed by the source material these days, I guess. I don't know, whatever. So there's aspects of that movie that I did enjoy, but yeah, it definitely could have been a lot better. I think the main problem with that movie, though, and this would have probably made this a much more successful movie if they hadn't have spent so much money on it. That movie was ridiculously expensive, and it's not like a Lone Ranger movie needs to be that expensive, you know? Just do it as like a spaghetti western, down and dirty, like that kind of thing. And I think the whole thing could have been a lot better, but you know, it is what it is. To me personally, there's never going to be a better Lone Ranger than Clayton Moore. Clayton Moore is like the guy. Like nobody can ever top Clayton Moore. Just not going to happen. So, you know, they've tried to do it many times and they've failed many times. That's all I'm saying about that. But I did enjoy the climax of that film. I did think that was a lot of fun. But like there definitely are things that I think they could have done a better job with in that movie. So I think I got distracted. I was talking about the articulation. So the arms rotate all the way around, and they raise up to the sides about that far. They do have that Mcfarlane butterfly joint there with the spacer and everything. So you can get lots of good poses out of that. He's got the bicep, so the little bicep rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That is about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation. And again, they did that weird sort of thing where like the wrist should probably be flesh colored, not shirt colored. I don't know why Mcfarlane does this. It's like they sit down and they think to themselves really hard, what's the best color to make this joint? And how can we screw that up? But the articulation is excellent. You can move it around any which way you want to. So that's really cool. I always really like that. And then he's got the mid-torso joint. Move back and forth that far. Frontwards and backwards that far. And, of course, that rotates all the way around. But since it's got that bibbed front to it, you kind of want to make sure that it's straightened up at most. You don't want to turn it too extreme, because then it'll just look weird. Like that button lines up now, but then he's got this random button on the side of his shirt for some reason. So you don't really want to mess around with that too much. And then rotates all the way around the waist as well. And then Vigilante can kick up about that far. And there is a little bit of a wobble there. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. He can do the splits, no problem. So that's good. He does have a thigh cut, which is unusual for McFarlane figures. But remember, this was originally these legs were originally made for Jonah Hex, and he was made to fit on a horse. So likewise, Vigilante can fit on a horse if you want to do that. We talked about that earlier. And hey, I'm going to make a Lone Ranger out of one of these. So I do want him to fit on a horse, in fact. I don't know what extent I'm going to go to on making this guy into the Lone Ranger, though. Like, am I going to just paint a mask on him and call it a day? Am I going to give him a different head? Am I going to repaint the outfits that he's wearing, like the same color blue shirt as the pants, like the TV show? Bong Donkey is here, and he says hello. Hello to you, too. Good to see you. Oh, yeah, articulation. We're still talking about that. So he's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. There is no boot cut at all, but hey, guess what? It's a McFarlane figure. So he's got the cool McFarlane ankle articulation. So it rotates all around where the ankle meets the foot and where the ankle meets the shin. And then he's got toe articulation just to show off. And he does have nice cowboy boot style feet with those cowboy style heels and everything like that. I just wish that the joints were the right color, because it looks like he's just kind of wearing regular shoes with socks that match his pants, and that's just strange. They really should have given him like tan joints there to match the tan boots. And then I don't know if I pointed this out before, but he does have the V painted onto his little paint application there. It's the same belt buckle that Jonah Hex has, but it just has that kind of little paint application there. So he does have a little V. And it looks like, to me, I can't quite tell, that the V itself is a slightly different shade of gold. Like, it's not just a black outline that's on there. It's got like a slightly different shade of gold in there, I think. That's what it looks like to me anyway. And then Vigilante has bullets on his gun. They're silver bullets. Silver bullets. So Jonah Hex, they're I don't think they are silver. But he's got the same bullets on it. But he's got silver bullets. You know, they did do the I don't know if I've got him over here anywhere where I can get to him easily. But I know I had that figure around here somewhere. The Platinum Edition version of Jonah Hex that had the blue shirt. Yeah, here he is. The one that came with the white horse also had a blue shirt. So I was thinking about maybe making this one into the Lone Ranger also. Maybe I might wind up mashing up the parts so that my Lone Ranger can have boots, you know, the pants bloused into the boots, and use like the lower half of this figure and the upper half of this figure. That might be a good way to do that. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure with him having a blue shirt and a white horse, that this figure was supposed to be kind of an homage to the Lone Ranger. A little bit of schmutz on his shirt there. Get that off of there. But yeah, this guy's even more Lone Ranger-ish. You know, like, and it's not like Vigilante is a ripoff of the Lone. I mean, I guess kind of, in that he's a Western-style superhero. And it probably was inspired by the Lone Ranger a little bit. But the look of him with the all blue outfit, that wasn't inspired by the Lone Ranger at all, because that's not what the Lone Ranger looked like in the old at that time in the comic, in the when Vigilante was created in the Golden Age. The Lone Ranger did not look like this. He did not have a blue outfit. The earliest version of the Lone Ranger, like I said, he was wearing just kind of like typical Western wear. In like, if you look at like stuff that was based purely on the radio show before they even had a comic strip or a movie serial or any other visual representation of the character, when he was just a character that was on the radio, and they had to do an illustration of him for like an advertisement or a pulp magazine or something. He was wearing just kind of like standard cowboy type clothes, and then he had the kind of, you know, the domino mask type thing going on usually. And like I said, originally the writer had intended for him to just have a bandana tied around the lower half of the face, like Vigilante, but that kind of fell by the wayside. I kind of feel like they felt like the the mask over the eyes was a little more distinctive, so that wound up being. Plus, like, you know, he's a character on a radio show, and his voice doesn't sound particularly muffled by anything like it would be like some fabric over your mouth like that is going to kind of give you a muffled kind of sound, at least slightly. But if you've just got it over like the top half of your face, it doesn't really interfere with that. So it kind of makes logical sense for a character on a radio show to not have the lower part of his face covered up. You know what I mean? So when they did the comic strip, that was when they decided to give the Lone Ranger a little bit more of a distinct visual appearance. And then he had a red shirt with black pants that later kind of became blue pants, like the way that black often becomes blue in comics. That tends to happen. And then and then, you know, he had that red shirt in the comic strip for many years, until the Clayton Moore television series, actually. And in the movie serial, he had black pants, and they shot him in like a cream colored shirt, I think, in the movie serial, because it was black and white. It's not really going to matter what color it is so much as it just looks good on screen. So I think the intention was that he was supposed to still be wearing the red shirt like he had in the comic strip, but it wasn't really colored like that in real life. And that was the shirt that's more like how the Lone Ranger shirt traditionally is, with the lace in the front and the kind of little embroidery over the shoulders, like that type of cowboy shirt. And then you had the Clayton Moore TV show, where I kind of feel like that's where you get the true definitive look of the Lone Ranger. And if you look at the most earliest episodes, his pants and his shirt aren't the same color. Like the shirt is still like a slightly lighter color than the pants. And I think it was supposed to look like a red shirt and blue pants, like what he had in the comic strip at the time. But when the show went to color, maybe even a little before the show went to color, Clayton Moore was the guy who suggested that like his shirt and his pants should be like the same color. And like, you know, I don't think he was thinking of specifically like a superhero costume, but basically like a superhero costume, you know. And that was that kind of became the definitive look of the Lone Ranger for the remainder of the character's existence. And most versions of the character in comics or in cartoons or other live action productions have had him in that all blue outfit. The Disney one we were talking about earlier being an exception, where he was wearing like a black suit. So I would rather him had the blue, personally. That's just me. Bong Donkey says, when I was in high school in the early 90s, I lived down the street from Mcfarlane. It was in, forgive me if I butcher this pronunciation, Ahwatukee, Arizona. Yeah, he lived in Arizona for like the longest. Kind of funny because he's from Canada. So he moves from like a really cold place to a really hot place. I don't know if he still lives in Arizona or not, but yeah, he lived in Arizona for a while. He might still live there. I don't know. Kyra says, I got the Star Wars werewolf looking alien yesterday for $14. Black Series, Captain Brutus. I always liked that werewolf guy. I always thought he was really cool. That's one of the more minor things about the special editions I didn't like, was they took out the werewolf guy. I mean, you can still see him in the background in like a couple of shots, I think, but I really like that shot of him. He's got that kind of growl like the old Disney cartoons where it's somebody growling into a glass. So he makes that kind of noise. I'm pretty sure Ben Burt did that himself. He knew how to make those kind of noises. And they took the character out of the movie and replaced him with some weird looking frog alien that I didn't like. And he still has that growl in there, even though he's just doesn't. I don't know where the growl's coming from now, since we don't have our werewolf guy on screen. But I liked werewolf guy. I thought he was cool. I always thought they should have made an action figure of him back in like back when in the old Kenner days. I would have liked to have a figure of him. I did have the Power of the Force 2, the 90s one that they made, but I thought they should have made one in the 80s. That's what I'm saying. So you got that off of Amazon? Well, that's cool. So one thing we should probably do before I wrap this up is I want to go ahead and put the weapon in his hands so we can see how well he can hold the weapons. And it seems like he's got that sort of issue going on with McFarlane figures where like the you see this a lot, unfortunately, where like the hands, the plastic on the hands is not very pliable. So this is going to be a little bit of a challenge getting this gun into his hand, since the gun is made of a more pliable plastic than the hand, and I have to kind of pry his fingers open to fit this gun handle in here, and it's a tight fit. Maybe I can use this paintbrush to kind of pull these fingers out a little. That's too thick. Ah, man. They just do not want to make this easy for us. Do I have anything around here like a screwdriver or anything else? Yeah, see, I'm trying to push it in here, and now it's bending the fingertip of his ring finger. And I'm just going to stretch the whole thing out and see if I can fit it in there that way. But that was a lot of effort. But man, he looks cool. He looks cool holding that gun. That does look really nice. Kyra says, Alan, I want an action figure of that giant cockroach with the glowing yellow eyes that in the Mandalorian cantina scene. I hope they make that one. You know, back in the day, they'd just make any Star Wars character into a figure, but I don't think Star Wars figures sell as well as they used to. I mean, obviously, they're still selling because you still see them at like Walmart and things like that, but it's not like the old days where like they just have like every obscure character you could possibly think of as a Star Wars figure. And I blame Disney. I blame Disney because and when George Lucas was still running the franchise, you could still get that going on. And there was shotgun, looks really cool with the shotgun. I like that. All right. Disney spent $4 billion buying the biggest movie franchise in the world so they could turn it into a television show. Disney, what your problem is. Kathleen Kennedy. And that was kind of technically George Lucas's fault, but I guess he couldn't have known how horrible she would turn out to be. All right, so I do have, like I said, I've got the Drifter motorcycle over here. I'm going to take this stand off of it. I wish they had done these stands in like a different way. Like I would much prefer to have a stand that like kind of, I guess I could maybe kind of fit it underneath there. I don't know if but it's supposed to kind of clip over the tire, and to me it looks like his motorcycle's been booted, so I don't really want to do that. So let's see if we can get Vig onto his steel horse, as Bon Jovi might refer to it. See how I can get him on in that kind of motorcycle. Get him into as close of a motorcycle riding position as I can. And that way, hopefully, he should fit on the. So he's got the little foot pedals there where you put the feet. And then we can lean him forward on the motorcycle. And it seems like those handlebars are kind of low. Almost a little more crotch rockety. But it seems like the best way to get those on is just kind of slide the. And can I get them up on there? So if you want a motorcycle for your Vigilante figure, there's one that exists. And last time I checked, these were, they might be more expensive now, but these were still fairly affordable. Most of the toys from the Batman movie are fairly affordable. Yeah, he's kind of, I can't quite, that popped his hand off of the handlebars. Uncarded Reviews is here and says, let's go, and says, want it, dead or alive, and says howdy to Kairos. And hello to you too. Kyra says, I ordered the Jean Grey X Factor on eBay for $18. That's a good price for that. I'm guessing maybe somebody found that on clearance at Target and they were able to sell it for cheap. And still, I think that's going to be about the best pose I can get out of him, where he's not quite sitting on the motorcycle seat. But yeah, there he is on the motorcycle. So, and Kyra says hello back to Uncarded Review. So that is how well he fits on that drifter motorcycle. So if you want a motorcycle for your Vigilante figure, these are still fairly affordable, I think, right now. Maybe I'll go ahead and look it up real quick. So last I checked, anyway, you could still get one for like at least retail price, if not a little less. But let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and look that up. Mcfarlane. Batman. Drifter. Motorcycle. See what these are selling for right now. We're just gonna real quick look on the. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty easy to get one of these for like less than retail. Big Bad Toy Store has them for about $22. eBay looks like somebody's selling one for about $22. I don't know if that includes shipping or not, but yeah, you can get one of these for less than retail right now. And I know they're really popular among G.I. Joe classified collectors, and they tend to use them a lot with the Dreadnoks. But I guess since it was a movie toy, they made just like a ton of them, and it's still fairly easy. It's probably not as popular a vehicle as the Bat Cycle that came out for that movie. And like I said before, I'm not like a huge fan. I'm not like a huge fan of that movie at all. But one of the things that I did like about it is like the Bat Cycle design was pretty cool. So the only piece of merchandise that I really bought from that movie to have as part of my collection of Batman stuff was the Bat Cycle, which I bought in a few different scales. I've got a 12-inch scale Bat Cycle, for example. So Kyrus asked where the motorcycle is from, and this is from the Mcfarlane, the Batman line. This was the Drifter motorcycle. This is what the motorcycle that Robert Pattinson rode when he was a bum. So, or do I repeat myself? I don't know. But yeah, like I've never actually tried to put any G.I. Joe classified figures on here. I think it might be a little big for those. Like I said, I couldn't even really get Vigilante to sit on it as well as I would have liked. But you know, he fits on it all right. You can kind of have him standing on it like that, like kind of standing there while he's kind of pose him like that. So Uncarded Reviews says, I bought so many of those Mcfarlane Drifter and Bat Cycles when they were on deep discount. Yeah, and like I said, it's still pretty easy to get one for like $22. Like they had it for $22 on Big Bad Toy Store, so you can still get them for like a decent price. Oh, I don't think I did not take the figure stand off the package. So let's go ahead and just real quick, just to get there's the figure stand. It's a black figure stand with a silver DC logo on it. We've seen this a million times, but I almost forgot to take it out. So I'm going to put the package back together so I can toss that in the recycling a little later. So Vigilante is a really cool figure of a character that I really like. Like I said, DC has had like a bunch of characters called Vigilante, but this one was the first, and in my opinion, the best. And they did a great job with this figure, and I'm glad to have him as part of my collection. He was not one that I had on my bingo card. Like, you hear me talk a lot about like characters that I wish Mcfarlane would make as far as DC characters, and he's not one that I ever really even thought to hope for, because he does seem to me to be a bit more on the obscure side as far as DC characters go. But I always had a lot of fondness for Vigilante. I mean, maybe it's because I am a big fan of the Lone Ranger and have been since I was a kid, and maybe he reminded me a little bit of like Lone Ranger slightly. But yeah, like I always had a little bit of fondness for the character, but I kind of feel like it was his appearance on Justice League Unlimited that really warmed me up to the character, and I really enjoyed him. And Nathan Fillion, like I said, he was the voice of Vigilante on that, and he did a great job. And he's done a bunch of DC characters since then. Like he'd done the voice of Hal Jordan, and he was in the James Gunn Superman movie where he was Guy Gardner, and he's done a bunch of DC stuff since then. And he's a talented actor. I always like seeing him and stuff. And I kind of think maybe Firefly was on the air at the same time as Justice League Unlimited, and he was playing kind of a cowboy type character in that, as a space cowboy, but still. Malcolm Reynolds, I believe, was the character's name. So I kind of figured that might have been like gimmick casting as far as that goes, but it was gimmick casting that worked. He was great in the part. But yeah, I like Vigilante. I like him in the comics. I liked him in the cartoon. And there was also, I should mention this before I wrap things up, is they did Vigilante actually was the star of a movie serial in the 1940s. One of the first comic book characters to have his own movie serial. And it's kind of funny how, like, Superman had a movie serial, Batman had a movie serial, Black Hawk had a movie serial. Those were big characters in the comics at the time. But then you had kind of like there also were some minor characters that DC had that got their own movie serials, like Hop Harrigan, and Vigilante had his own movie serial. And Vigilante in that was played by Ralph Byrd, who was most famous for playing Dick Tracy in those movie serials, and also a few feature films, and the Dick Tracy television series, which most episodes are lost these days, but it was a very early television series. So anyway, that's it for Vigilante. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and the character in general. Next episode, I'm going to be back with some Masters of the Universe stuff, because I got a ton of Masters of the Universe stuff to open up. I've got the movie Origins Beastman figure, and I think that's going to be a good figure to open up next. I think that's going to be the one I'm going to do next. So we'll open him up, and then I think I'm going to finally start on opening up all these 2000X cartoon collection figures that I have to open up. But excuse me, I had a hiccup and a burp at the same time. That wasn't pleasant. Had one going one way and one going the other. Not fun. Uncarded Review says Motu Chronicles looks pretty good so far. I agree. I've opened up a few of those on this channel so far. And in fact, I have the movie version of He-Man right here, because I had him over here. I was comparing him with the other movie He-Man figures so far. And yeah, these are really great figures. I'm a fan of what they've been doing with these so far. I definitely agree with you there. So yeah, I think my sword's kind of messed up. It looks like it kind of just didn't quite get molded right here. It's like a little bit of a spot. It almost like there's a little hole through there. Like I didn't notice that before. Like maybe there was like a bubble in the mold or something. A little teeny tiny. I don't even know if you can see that. But anyway, but yeah, those figures have been really cool so far, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting more of those. So my plan leading up to the movie is I'm going to open up a lot of these cartoon collection figures that I have to open. And of course, I'll have movie toys to open up in between there. I've got the Kids Core versions of Beastman and Teela and Mechanic. I've got those to open up. I'm probably going to pick up the Skell Knight probably sometime in the very immediate future. I want to go ahead and pick that up. And then they got more stuff coming out. They got so much. I still need to get the Chronicles version of Man-at-Arms and Triclops. But yeah, the only movie Chronicles that I've opened up so far is He-Man himself. And then of course I had the King Grayskull and Scareglow figures, and those were both awesome. So yeah, this line is definitely getting off to a good start. So I'm enjoying that. Anyway, that's it for Vigilante. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe and all the other fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about Vigilante, both the figure and the character in general. YouTube likes it. When I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. Leave a comment because I like it when you leave comments. And that's going to be pretty much it for this episode. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Bye.